Today's question. If you're ready, say, I'm ready.
I'm ready.
Okay. I'm ready too. If God is loving and all-powerful, why are there kids starving in Africa? Tough, right? That's hard. It's a hard question. And it's asked a lot, right? It's a huge argument against Christianity. People, it's kind of like one of the first things they throw out is the reputation for God, right? It is a difficult question to answer. It's hard and complex, and it's kind of expert level stuff. So I'm going to be doing the message a little bit differently today than I would normally do it. Normally I try to have one continuous line of thought, right? Kind of like giving that argument throughout the whole thing, especially to answer questions like this. But today I'm going to do something different, and I'll tell you what it is right now. I'm going to have 3 almost completely unrelated sections. They're not unrelated, but it's not a continuous line of thought. I've got forewords, which are kind of just, it's not a foreword to my argument, it's just extra things about this topic and the problems that it entails, right? So I'm going to have a whole section of extra thoughts on suffering and kids starving in Africa and God. Then the second section is going to be problems with this question, right? I'm going to kind of lay out what this question is trying to imply and why it's not really that great a question to disprove God. It's a good question to think about, right? We should try and answer as Christians, and we should have an answer, and we should be thinking, wrestling with it, and digging in deep. But the problem with this question is that people who ask it think, nice, checkmate. I got God, right? I disproved him. And I'm going to be talking about why this question is refutable, right? It doesn't disprove God. And then finally, I'm going to give the answer that I think the Bible gives. So it'll be 3 kind of distinctly different things. Let's get right to the first one. Let's jump into the forewords. It might be the most fun section, so let's do it. Okay, number 1, first foreword. Let's give one more I'm ready if you're ready. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Right, okay. This is an expert level question. I mean, it's tough stuff. And I was going to have a foreword about whatever God's plan for our lives necessitates a high level of enlightenment. Like, we should be working to be answering the harder and harder questions. This is up in some of the hardest question category, right? And if it wasn't this question, it would be something else that would be equally difficult to answer and equally complex to answer as well. But this is an expert level question, and I'm not in the big leagues, right? I'm pretty qualified to answer questions and speak at this church, kind of, just because I've been doing it for a while now, and I love God and whatever. But I'm not C.S. Lewis, right? I'm not a Christian philosopher. I'm not a Christian historian. I think I've got a good answer, and I can help if the person really has doubts about those questions, and the stuff that I say is valid and it's good. But if you don't like what I'm saying, go to one of these guys, right? I'm playing for the K-Wings, and that's a little prideful of me to say it to myself. And they're playing for the Red Wings. And again, I don't know why I did a hockey analogy, because nobody cares about that. I should say something else. But they're in the big leagues, I'm in the small leagues, right? If my answer doesn't satisfy, let me quick recommend these people. C.S. Lewis, Dr. Don Carson, and Kushner all have great responses to this question. C.S. Lewis wrote a great book called The Problem of Pain. Dr. Don Carson wrote How Long, O Lord? Reflections on Suffering, and Kushner's Why Bad Things Happen to Good People are all great topics on suffering. So if you don't like what I'm saying, I'm just going to defer it to someone else who's a lot smarter than me and has a lot more degrees than me and can really wax eloquently on very difficult things. Okay, that's the first thing. Look at somebody else if you don't like what I have to say. Number 2, and this is kind of a big one. Are you ready for this kind of question? And I'm not saying directly to the person that asked it, I don't know who it was, but to most people who ask this question, they ask it flippantly, right? People who aren't religious and don't believe in God, they kind of say, I've got God in the corner, and that was easy, right? But it's not easy. And I wouldn't flippantly question God's identity, right? This is expert level stuff. And when you say stuff that is trying to disprove God being loving or all-powerful, you should expect to hurt your brain while doing it. right? We're going to talk about all of time, all of morality, free will and choice, right? And all of this stuff gets very deep very quickly. And if you're coming into this question without expecting to think hard, turn around, right? Tough topic, tread lightly. This stuff is tough. And if you're not ready for it, maybe save it for another day. Wait, it's too late now, we're going to talk about it. So let's go to the next slide. We've got number 2 continued. Here's a quote from C.S. Lewis from The Problem of Pain, as I was doing my research this week. And I'm just going to read it without trying to have some explanatory inflections. I'm just going to read it like I read it the first time. There is no reason to suppose that self-consciousness, the recognition of a creature by itself as a self, can exist except in contrast with another, a something which is not the self. The freedom of a creature must mean freedom to choose, and choice implies the existence of things to choose between. A creature with no environment would have no choices to make, so that freedom, like self-consciousness, if they are not indeed the same thing, again depends on presence to the self of something other than the self. The what? What did that say? This is the kind of stuff, the kind of language that is almost necessary to bring in to dig in this complex topic, right? I just said this, first of all, it's a great quote, but I had to read it like 4 times to get what it was talking about, right? I had to read it and reread it again, and that is the business of this expert level, right? If you're, don't read, Descartes or Socrates if you're not, kind of casually on Sunday. It requires study, it requires hard thought, it requires critical thinking. So don't tread lightly on this question. Okay, next slide, please. This is just a quick forward. There's lots of content today, so I'm going to be doing less proofs. Most of the time, I don't like to just say stuff and have the assumption, but any of the proofs today, hopefully I've talked about extensively in the last couple of weeks. But I wrote on here, I've got a funny little note in my notes. A lot of content today, so some things that I say have been proved within the past 2 weeks or so at church, so hopefully you won't get a whole other proof from me today. I can't promise anything, I always talk my head off, so hopefully I won't do that, and I'll be able to keep the ball rolling like I should be doing right now and skipping to the next forward, but I'm not doing. So, here we go. For practice, let's just go right to the next thing without me explaining that again. Number 4, you might not need to go overseas to find unjust suffering. That's the topic of today. Why, if God is loving and all-powerful, why does unjust suffering exist? You don't need to go to Africa to deal with unjust suffering, right? Like we said, frankly, in the neighborhood, there's been a lot of suffering on these streets in the past month. A lot, right? Part of this, we use kids in Africa as an argument for this because for most people in America or first world countries, it's a vague, ambiguous problem that seems unsolvable our way, right? And we don't have an answer for it because, wow, yeah, it seems so foreign, that problem, that I can't make sense of God at all because I don't really know what kind of problem I'm dealing with, right? Kids in Africa might be happy compared to someone who's fighting cancer for years. And why I'm saying this, while it might make it look like I'm making an argument worse, is that we have a lot of suffering here in America. One of the things I was reading online today from a secular person, secular philosopher, he was saying that people use this argument wrongly because, first of all, kids starving in Africa, starvation is not the greatest suffering in our world, right? There's a lot of pain in our world. And I think part of the reason that we use Africa is because it's too far away. They might be a lot happier than you think, right? I can't speak on it. I've never been a missionary. I've never gone to Africa and seen starvation. But some of the stories that I've heard, I went there and I learned something about life from them, right? And I think that kind of speaks to this issue a little bit, right? We're trying to use something that we're not very familiar with to talk about suffering. And I say all this to say, if we can make sense of God at home, maybe we could do it overseas too if it wasn't so foreign, right? So, children starting in Africa, it seems like totally unjust, totally undeserved, extremely bad suffering, right? But that's happening here in America. And here in America, we can kind of make sense of God. So I think the kids in Africa thing is a little bit of a trap because it's far away and we don't know anything about it. But if we can make sense of God here at home, maybe we can do it overseas too. I'm not trying to trivialize this subject, by the way. I'm not saying, oh, those kids in Africa got it great, or anything like that. No, it is bad. And we're good to think about this, but it might behoove us to bring it closer to home. Okay, and we'll talk about that more as we get into the argument. Number 5, starvation versus toe stubbing. Toe stubbing your toe might be unjust suffering, right? We might experience unjust suffering all the time. And one of the problems with this argument about why would God allow unjust suffering is that if God is going to, it's reasonable for a person to assume that God should not let kids starve who are just kids, right? But a reasonable person would also say, well, who cares if you stub your toe? God shouldn't intervene with that, right? So you should just man up. So those are two kinds of unjust suffering. Say you didn't deserve your stub your toe at all. Someone just put an object in front of you that's undeserved, right? So assume it's unjust suffering. Because you might be saying, if you stub your toe, you might really deserve that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it's an accidental toe stubbing. It's a hypothetical scenario where you did not deserve to get a minute amount of pain. So, it's reasonable to say God shouldn't have kids starve. It's reasonable to say that you should just have to deal with that small amount of suffering. But my question with the argument is, where does God draw the line on suffering? Right? It's somewhere in between those two that God should stop intervening. But who has the authority to say that? Right? So if we say, well, God should let this unjust stuff happen, right, in Africa, there are, again, people close to home who would say, no, but I've had some unjust suffering too. God should be fixing that as well. And how long down this line does it go? And how do we know if that is the right spot to put that line or not? I don't think we can know. We don't have the data. Our minds can't perceive how God should work, or what is morality, or what is justice. Right? I think God knows where to draw that line. And I think that God does intervene if there's unjust suffering. Right? I think that it is a thing that happens in the world at times, and we'll talk about that again later too. But if God is real, right, He knows where the line should go. And He knows because He knows every decision people make and why they make it, right? The Lord weighs the hearts of men. We look at the outside, we're trying to observe and make scientific or philosophic absolutes when we don't have enough data to support that, but God does, right? So my question is, where does God draw the line? Number 6, and when it's a hard topic, I always put this forward and it kind of bums me out, but it's true and I gotta say it. Other churches will say something different, but I'm right. So, if you go to another church, right, which, please do, and if you think something differently than this, then come and talk to me about it, and I'd like to have that discussion. It might be a lot different from the thing that I'm going to say. But know this, if you think, Josh, I don't like that, I don't think that that sounds totally right, know that, or if you are just tackling the subject for the first time, know that there are other schools of thought out there in what I'm going to say. Right? And I'm totally willing to admit that other churches say something completely different. And they might be right. But I don't know. Those people aren't dumb. They're very smart. Right? C.S. Lewis, and I'll show my hand right now, I'm pretty into free will, right? I think people have the ability to make choices. But there are good arguments for not that. C.S. Lewis is he's still, as we saw in the first quote, about people's choice and free will, but he's much more about people having less control than we think we do, right? And he's way smarter than me, right? So there are these people with different arguments that I'll admit right now, there's always someone smarter on the other side. So if you don't like what I have to say, you can go to another church and they'll say something else. Okay, here's the last forward in this section, so we're almost done if you're bored. But then we've got 2 more sections, so buck up. Here we go. Hey God, why don't you do something about the poor? He shouts while watching his ADHD TV. This is not a refutation of the argument of why there's unjust suffering, but it's a good thing to ponder, right? Here's James 2, 14 through 17 from the Message. Dear friends, do you think you'll get anywhere in this as in faith in knowing God? If you learn all the right words but never do anything? Does merely talking about faith indicate that a person really has it? For instance, you could come upon an old friend dressed in rags and half-starved and say, "Good morning, friend. Be clothed in Christ. Be filled with the Holy Spirit," and walk off without providing so much as a coat or a cup of soup. Where does that get you? Isn't it obvious that God talk about God acts is outrageous nonsense? Someone say it's good.
It's good.
Something that isn't explicitly said in the Bible is an answer to the question about the starving kids in Africa. But something that is explicitly said in the Bible is, go feed the poor. Right? That is something that you cannot get away from biblically. Is God says, anytime you serve the poor, you serve me. Right? So if we're pondering about why God isn't helping the problem of starvation, and we've never done anything to help that problem, we need to check ourselves. Right? Especially as Christians. If you're coming at it from a biblical standpoint, and you're thinking, well, I've got this criticism of God is not doing enough against the people that are suffering. The Bible says this, do some stuff against the people that are suffering, right? It is definitely our job to help the poor. And if we're going to have this what this verse is talking about is you can't have a Christian attitude without doing Christian stuff, right? You can't, it's false religion if you don't try and help other people, right? So, here in America, with all of our comfort, maybe we could do a little better to share our comfort before we, walk the walk before you talk the talk, so to speak. Again, it's not a reputational argument. We can't pass the buck away from this hard topic and just say, well, you need to help the poor first, right? No, there's still a further argument, but again, keep it in the back of your mind. We are supposed to do that, right? Problems with the argument. Let's all stand up really quick. Just quick, stand up. Raise them up. Do some of this action. Get a little stretching. Alright, sit back down. I don't want anybody to get bored or fall asleep, so you're stuck here, man, even though you didn't pay for it and you can leave anytime you want. Here we go. Problems with the argument. So this question, right, it's implying an argument. It's making an argument that God is unloving or not all-powerful, thus being untrue because he says those things. Let me make sure I'm at my good point in my notes here. And what this question often is trying to do is just totally disprove God. And I've already said this once, it's good to think about this argument as a Christian. We should have a reputation for this, right? We should maybe have an answer. Or even if it's not an answer, we should have a response, right? We should have something to say to this. But people who ask this question often in ignorance, right, it's not the atheist experts, right? They don't try and use this to disprove God because they're smarter than that, and they know it's not that good of an argument, and we'll see why. But it's implying an argument. Today I'm going to use, in philosophy, some deduction. That's what this is called. It's a formal argument, it's a logic sequence that says, I've got these premises, and because of this stuff, this answer must be true. That's what an argument is down to its core. And we're going to use that tool to break down their argument and then say what's wrong about it. So we're putting up our dukes here using some technical arguing to do the thing. And if an argument is good, this is why I went on this ramble here. In philosophy, if you have an argument that has two qualities, if it's valid and sound, it's irrefutable. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So that's why these arguments are often used, is because they're almost using mathematics to prove an argument, right? And they use it in a certain format to do this stuff. And it's a very commonplace thing. Fair warning, I took critical thinking 3 years ago at Western, so it's been a little while since I've done any deduction, but we're going to work with it today. Okay, so I reworded what this argument is, what this question is trying to argue into a formal argument. Here it is. God says he's all loving and all powerful. That's premise number one, right? God says he's all loving and all powerful. Premise number two. If God is what he says, then he wouldn't allow unjust suffering. That's premise number 2. Premise number 3 is there is unjust suffering. So the conclusion is this. So God is not what he says. Loving and kind. Right? So that's what they're trying to say. Hey, God says he's this thing, but if that was true, he wouldn't allow unjust suffering. There is unjust suffering. God isn't true. Right? That's what this is trying to argue. It's a pretty good argument, actually. Right? And that's why this question rings so truly with us that are trying to discover God. You hear that and you go, oh, that's dangerous. And it's because it's a good argument. Right? The logic of this argument is valid. It is a valid argument. And that is one of the 2 qualities that something has to be irrefutable. And we'll talk about that in a second. Next slide. Just to bore you a little bit more, here's a quick lesson in deduction. This argument, the one about God, it is valid but not sound. Let me say what those things are. An argument is valid if all of the premises are true, then there's no way for the conclusion to be false. Right? That is what a valid argument is. That if all of the premises were true, then there's no way for the conclusion to be false. We see that in the argument. Go back. If premise 1, 2, and 3 were true, then there's no way for the 4th thing to be untrue. It's logically impossible, right? That's what a valid argument is. This argument is valid, so that's why it seems good, but it's not sound. And we'll talk about that in a minute. Here's an example of another argument that's valid but not sound. All dogs are humans. Oreo is a dog, so Oreo is a human. We know that this argument is not true, right? If you're a dog and you're not a human, it doesn't make any sense. But it's valid because if all of those premises were true, if it was true that all dogs are human, and if it was true that Oreo is a dog, then there's no way for Oreo to not be a human. It's a valid argument. It's nonsense, right? It doesn't make any sense because the premises aren't true. It carries no weight in our actual real world because it's totally false, but the logic is there, right? It's sound. The other quality is sound, and it doesn't comment on how the logic is set up at all, right? It's totally the opposite thing. It just has to do with if the premises are true. An argument is sound if all the premises are true. Here's my example. These are kind of fun, but here's my example with a sound argument. Anything with a tail is an animal. Josh has a face, so Oreo is a dog. Right? That argument makes no sense. The logic sequence doesn't have anything to do. Things with tails being animals and me having a face has no correlation to whether Oreo is a dog. Right? But all of those things are true. Right? Well, I kind of put this together first because you could say that the first one is not always true, but anyway. They are all true, right? And so the argument is sound. It's not valid, so it's refutable, but it is sound. An argument is irrefutable if it's both valid and sound, right? If the logic works out and all of the premises are true, then the conclusion is true, right? Or false. It's correct. The argument about God is valid but not sound. So it's good to think about, but it doesn't disprove God and isn't refutable. Or is refutable. Oops, that's a bad typo. It doesn't disprove God and it is irrefutable. No, it isn't irrefutable. Man, I need another cup of coffee today. Okay. And I'm going to break down why these premises aren't true. Because you think, well, those premises all did seem pretty true, right? Let's go back up. One more. God says he's all loving and powerful. Right away, you think that's true. If God is what he says he is, then he wouldn't allow unjust suffering. That seems true too, right? There is unjust suffering. Those all seem pretty true. So if the premises are true, then that conclusion is pretty dangerous, right? That's why this question is scary, because the premises are almost true, but they're not always true. Let's talk about each one. And everybody says, whoa. I'm tired. Okay, God says he's all loving and all powerful. That's true, right? He does say to be all powerful and all loving. But I'm not sure if we totally understand what that means. I've got a thing at the bottom here that I was going to say till the end, but I'll say it now. Have you ever heard that old rhyme, can God make a rock so big that he can't lift it? right? I thought after all this time studying the Bible, I'd be able to answer that question. But I can't. And I'm really bummed about it. But I think that that's what's going on here too. Can God break his own rules? Can God do anything? The Bible says that power belongs to him, right? Power and authority over everything belongs to God. But if God says that he's just, can he be unjust? Right? If God says he's fair, can he be unfair? I don't think so. So can God do an unjust action or an unfair action? I don't think so. Does God have the power to do everything? Yes. Can God do everything? I think by his own self-made identity, he can't. Right? Here's Psalms 25:10. God is fair and just. He corrects him misdirected and he sends him in the right direction. Can God be unfair? Can God be unjust? I don't think God can break his own rules, so I'm not sure if he can do anything, right? You think, Josh, how does that apply to Africa? I don't know. Right? I don't know what quality of God would prevent him from saving starving kids. I'm not sure. But I don't know everything about God. I can't explain all of history and all the choices and everything to know what is absolutely moral and what's not. Right? And we're going to talk about that in a second. But all I'm trying to prove is that one of our premises are breaking down. Right? One of the premises of the argument is that God is all-powerful. And I just don't know if he is. So maybe the thing that's going on in Africa is God doing God stuff. Right? And I'm not trying to be speak heresy or anything here. Right? I'm just simply trying to say that maybe God is being just and fair with this happening. We don't understand how. Right? But as we've already said, we don't have enough data to understand everything that happens in the world. Right? We can't say absolutely that God is being ungodly, but powerful in Africa because God can't break his own rules. And you might be thinking, Josh, I don't know about that. That's cool. I still got two more. Next slide. If God is all loving and all powerful, he wouldn't allow unjust suffering. We don't know that. We don't know that. Right? We don't know what total morality is. We don't know absolutely the difference between right and wrong. No Christian has ever claimed to ever know the complete difference between right and wrong. Right? So now we're assuming that we absolutely know what God should be doing. We don't know. Right? There's just no way to know this for sure. It's way too crazy of a premise to assume to be true. We just don't have the ability to understand what God should be doing and what he shouldn't be doing. Maybe God is totally loving and totally powerful, and there still is unjust suffering, right? The world is complex. Time is very large, and the universe is huge. And morality is one of the core principles, the difference between right and wrong, in that vast, complex expansion, right? And for us to say that we understand it completely and say what God should be doing in his infinite wisdom, I think it's kind of ignorant, right? For us to say, oh, I know exactly what God should be doing, and again, it seems like God should not allow that, right? I'm not trying to trivialize the matter again, but to say that we know it for sure is, I think, a little pride, right? Part of the reason I bring this up and I'm going to talk about it in the biblical response is that if you know God, if you've experienced his love, if you know Jesus on the cross, right, then you'll say, it kind of seems like that's unjust suffering that God should be taking care of, but I know that God is loving. I've experienced that he is good, right? So there must be something else going on because I know that God would never allow unjust suffering, right, of this magnitude. See, because you know God. I just want to pause here too because it's not in my whole thing. Just to say, we have a biblical response for is God all loving? He sent his son to die for us. Right? It's not about sacrifice. God did as much as he could to love us the best way that he knew how. God said, this is the most loving thing that I can do is to send my son to die for the whole world. And he did. Right? So if you think that it's God being cruel that people are suffering this way, that doesn't sit well, right? Because we've seen that God is loving. He's done the work to be loving. He showcased himself to show us his love. Right? So if we come across questions like this, we should say, that's perplexing, and I'll think about it, and that's good. But we should be standing on the rock of Christ's sacrifice for us. Right? Not just for us, for every person that wants forgiveness. Right? Anybody. Christ died, Christ loved the whole world. That God sent his Son for his love for the whole world, right? So we know that God is loving. Back to original programming. To know that this premise is true, we have to be able to prove it. And we can't because we don't know all of morality. We don't absolutely know the difference between right and wrong. And we just don't. I don't know. We need to absolutely know the difference between right and wrong, and we just don't. Here's some examples. Women in church, right? 400 years ago, women were not allowed to speak in church, ever. And not like speak from the pulpit, to speak. They could go into church, and they could be seen, but they couldn't be heard. And that was proved with science and morality to be known absolutely. Right? That was not in question. Nobody was trying to refute that. That was like, nope, men are the leaders of society, and it would be wrong to disrespect the church with a woman talking. That was the dialogue. Now we say that's absolutely not correct, and we laugh at it, right? And our perception of morality at the time then, right, is laughable. But that's what they thought absolutely. So what I'm saying is we might think God absolutely should, from our knowledge of morality now, be intervening with this situation. 300 years from now, we might laugh at that. Right? What if we grow in God and learn more and we say, man, that thing that we thought totally and absolutely we had biblical evidence for, it's laughable now. Right? Here's another thing. Yellowstone Wolves. I just saw this on a PBS station the other week and I thought, I'm going to use that in the message. Yellowstone in the 19th century, 1800s, right? They killed all wolves because they thought predators are bad. They thought it's ruining the natural splendor. We understand nature. We understand morality in the animal kingdom. Predators are bad, and we should get rid of all the predators, right? And they thought that absolutely, so they killed all the wolves. They killed all the wolves. And then, like 40 years ago, they sent the wolves back, right? They reneged on that one. What they thought absolutely was not true. They said, predators are bad, we're going to kill. And then they went, ooh, we messed with the natural ecosystem and now the park has totally gone into chaos. We need those wolves, right? My point is, so many times throughout history we thought we know the answer to this absolutely. But that's a dangerous thing to say. We don't, right? So if you've experienced God's love and you can't prove this absolutely, don't do it. Because you might be proving yourself very ignorant to the people who are enlightened 300 years from now. Right? If you can't prove it absolutely, just trust God's love. That is something you can know for sure. Right? And that's, if you want to spoil it, that's kind of the biblical answer, is that we might have a question about this, right? But we can't know for sure. What we can know for sure is God's love. Right? God loves us. There's no doubt. And if you're a Christian, and if you listen to God's voice, you experience that for yourself. And then everything else is up in here. I'm going to run through this. There is unjust suffering. This one, biblically, I think is true. The Bible says there's unjust suffering. We'll talk about that in a minute too. Because of our ability to make wrong choices, suffering was brought into existence, right? God gave autonomy to Adam and Eve. They turned away from God, and God valued our autonomy over our having a pleasant life, right? People can make bad choices, so there's bad ramifications immediately and way down the road, right? And I have a biblical answer for why there's bad stuff happening. And I say it's unfair, right? That is my biblical answer. And we talked about this yesterday, right? Bad stuff just happens. And it's a bummer, and God says it's a bummer, right? And what we do now, maybe those kids in Africa didn't do anything to deserve that, but maybe it's just a negative repercussion to something that happened a long time ago. We live in a world where people's bad choices make for a bad environment, right? God did didn't want no starvation. He made a place where everything was cool, right? The original plan from God was paradise. And there was no tears, and there was no suffering, and there was no scarcity, right? And that was how God made it. But God said, and you can also make choices. And it bombed, right? They made the wrong choice. They done messed up there. But, and because of that, we live in a bad world. So biblically, yeah, there is unjust suffering. That verse is true. But secularly, we don't really know this either. Did you know that Christianity, and I looked this up on a website, so maybe this is just the website saying this. We're the only religion that says there is unjust suffering, right? Every other religion says there's no unjust suffering in the world. That any suffering is a part of sin, right? Directly, right? It's some cosmic balance between wrongdoing and the punishment for that, right? Between karma and Islam, Hinduism, right? They all think that there's no unjust suffering. So they don't have an answer for this thing. They say, well, those kids deserved it. Somewhere or other. Maybe they didn't do anything, but the wrongdoing of someone else brought that judgment on. And we're the only religion that says, yeah, it's just unfair. And that's a bummer, right? I just think that's interesting. But so this, secularly, we don't know what cosmic justice is, right? So this is untrue in the secular world, but it is true in Christianity. Okay, next slide. Oh, that's it. Yeah, so I would have a response for each premise. I don't think any of them are true. Let's go back 4 slides, just really quick. And we're almost done, so we'll do horses. One more. God says He's all-loving and all-powerful. I don't know where He's done that, but we brought it into question, right? And that's the point. It's not absolutely for sure. If God is what He says He is, then He wouldn't allow unjust suffering. We don't know that to a certainty either. We don't know all of morality. We can't answer for that. There is unjust suffering. If you're coming from a secular standpoint, you're out of luck there too, right? I don't know if there's unjust suffering. I still don't know the totality of morality. That should be a cool rapping name. Anyway, but we just don't know. The Bible says there is unjust suffering, and it's the only one. So the Bible's kind of throwing this argument a bone, right? But the rest of it, they don't know. Anyway, so this argument, it's still good to think about, and that's what I want to wrap up this section with. It's still a good thing to have a response to, which we're about to see. But if you're trying to use this argument to disprove God, I have a reputation for it, right? I can say, hey, this isn't foolproof. You can't disprove God with this argument. It's just not sound. It's valid. That's not sound. Keep going. Let's go back to the biblical response. Here's the response. There's unjust suffering, right? But the story's not over. God is all-loving, and He is all-powerful. And God will right all wrongs in the end. Right? That's the business of God. And we know this because we've seen God work in our lives. If you experience God's love, the more you experience God's love, the more that you can trust that this is true. God will right all wrongs in the end. Anything that's unfair, God will make fair. Right? And maybe that will include some judgment, but I think when we see God right everything, we'll say, He's right. There's no other way. Let's go to John chapter 16 in our two fancy dancy Bibles. This still applies to these Bibles. We bought an excess of them, and they are a little cheap. Not that cheap. They're nice. But take one home. If you don't have one, we're going to take one home. If you don't have a Bible and don't read the Bible regularly, don't take one of these home. Take one of the messages home. Those are easy to read, and they're good for if you have another Bible. There's one for every use. Okay, here we go. John chapter 16. This is Jesus talking to the disciples right before His death. And he's not talking explicitly about the kids in Africa, but he is talking about suffering, right? And how we live in an unjust world right now. Okay. Let's start at verse 19. Is that where I want to start? It's on page 1011. Last time I bought Bibles, someone complained, said, don't get a thing. Remember when we used to say, this is on page 200 in the New Testament. Now it's all the same number. So, moving on up. Okay. So here's let's start with verse 18. They kept asking, what does he mean by a little while? We don't understand what he's saying. Let's stop right there. Right? This is a great parallel to what we're talking about right now. We're asking, what's this about? I don't understand this. Right? I've got a question about my faith, and Jesus says, it's okay. They say, I don't get this, I don't understand. They're in the same predicament that we are. Verse 19, Jesus saw that they wanted to ask him about this, so he said to them, are you asking one another what I mean, what I said, in a little while you will see me no more, and then after a little while you will see me? Very truly, I tell you, you will weep and mourn while the world rejoices. This is what we're getting into here. Weeping and mourning, right? You will weep and mourn while the world rejoices. You will grieve, but your grief will turn to joy. This is the part I want to talk about. A woman giving birth to a child has pain because her child is coming. But when the baby is born, she forgets the anguish because of her joy that the child is born into the world. So with you, now is your time of grief, but I will see you again and will rejoice, and no one will take away your joy. Verse 23, this is the first part of the one I want to say. And that day you will no longer ask weeping. Someone say it's good. God will right all the wrongs. Maybe these poor kids, right, in Africa, they're going through unjust suffering, and it's bad, and it's a bummer, and it's unfair. But God says, when it's all said and done, we'll forget about the grief, right? We read in Revelations yesterday that God makes all things new, right? The one who sits on the throne said that God makes all things new. He wiped all the tears away from the eyes, right? And there will be no more death and no more mourning, right? And I think that applies to our conversation today, right? All this unjust suffering that we see, God will make good on it. And if you know God, you know that God will right wrongs in the end, right? He'll fix it. It's going to be okay. I have never known God to be unfair or unloving or without power, right? And if He says He's going to make it good, then He'll make it good, right? Maybe those poor kids that are starving in Africa will get to heaven and in 1 second will say, no big, right? Which, if that's what the Bible says, is that we'll have an eternity of perfection with God, right? Well, we're going to be in God's presence, which is perfection, and we'll be experiencing that for eternity. I thought of just this little thought of experiment. What if you have, and it's not even those kids in Africa, what if someone has a horrible life for 80 years here, and it's all suffering all the time, and it's just the worst circumstance? 80 years is infinitesimal to eternity, right? And if God brings them into His presence, if God says that was unfair, here's my presence, whatever, or they know God, or however you want to say about it, God will make it okay. And an eternity with Him makes 80 years non-remember. You can't even remember it, right? It's not even in the equation because God's love goes on for so long, right? If you were in heaven for, say, 100,000 years on our terms, do you think you would remember that stuff, that toe that was right? Would you remember 10 years of suffering on earth? People go through insane suffering, right? We have a family from this church who lost their son in a snowmobile accident. Total sudden. That son had 2 daughters and another baby on the way and a wife, and now he's gone. He's dead. And that seems like the craziest thing to me, and it shook a lot of people's faces. People said, how could this, why? He had 3 little kids. How could God take that person away? And they might go through 20 years of suffering, right? But, it's like the old song we sing when we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be, right? When the child is born, we forget the fathers. And when we see Jesus, right, if we are in the presence of God, the other stuff is immaterial. And what if we're in the presence of God for 100,000 years? Back to this example. Will we remember that 10 or 20 years of suffering that we had? Probably not. That was like 100,000 years ago, right? And that's not even eternity. That's just 100,000 years, right? That's just something that we can quantify. Don't worry about it. God makes all things new. Let's go to Genesis chapter 21. And that's going to be the last thing for today. I may keep good on. We're going until 12:15 or 12:20, like I said a couple weeks ago. So you can blame Jeremy if you're mad for us getting out late.
You're welcome.
This is one of my favorite stories in the Bible. And of course, God would, I think, put it on me to share today, right, during one of the hardest questions that we can ask. Let's read, I'm going to look at my notes for this one too. Let's start in verse 8. So what's happening here is Abraham was promised a son, right? And he had a son with his concubine instead of his wife because they were like 100 years old, right? And God said, no, your wife's going to get pregnant at 100 years old. And eventually she does. And God says, hey, this son with your wife, that's the one that I'm going to use to usher in Jesus, essentially, right? He was part of the plan. So the wife was mad and said, you got to send this other one away, right? Send them into the wilderness, depart them from me. And that's the situation we're in now, right? The wife of the son says, you got to send this other one away, and God says, the son with Sarah, that's the one that is going to be the son, right? And this is what happens. The child grew and was weaned, that's Isaac, the son from Sarah. And Abraham held a great feast, but Sarah saw that the son whom Hagar, the Egyptian, had born to Abraham was mocking. It's like, don't test your luck, kid. Come on. And anyway. And she said to Abraham, get rid of that slave woman and her son, for that woman's son will never share in the inheritance with my son Isaac. This matter distressed Abraham greatly because it concerned his son. This matter with the question, it concerns us greatly because it concerns the identity of God, right? And it concerns those kids in Africa. We care for them, right? We have a heart for these people that suffer. It's okay. God will make it okay. Verse 12. But God said to him, don't be distressed about the boy and your slave. Right? Listen to whatever Sarah tells you, because it is through Isaac that your offspring will be reckoned. I will make the son of the slave into a nation also, because he is also your offspring. Early the next morning, Abraham took some food and a skin of water and gave them to Hagar. He sent them on her shoulders and then sent her off with the boy. She went on her way and wandered in the desert of Beersheba. Now let's just stop right there. Imagine Abraham's predicament right now. Right? So God tells him to listen to his wife, so he does it, and he's really sad about it because it's his son, and I think Abraham just thinks, I'm sending them off to God. Right? God doesn't say, and he does say, I'll take care of him. He's got a promise that he'll make all things good, just like he has a promise for us, right? That he'll make all things good. But right now, the evidence is, hey, this Hagar is going to die. I don't have an answer for that. This seems horrible, right? But God takes care of the stuff that we don't always understand, right? Our perception is that the slave woman is going to die, and these kids are just suffering unjustly, but God takes care of it. And I think Abraham could easily send off Hagar because he knew God. God has already proved himself in Abraham's life tons of times, right? Abraham up and moved everything that God told him to, right? Abraham almost, well, not yet, but he will sacrifice his son because God tells him to. He doesn't. But Abraham is ready to trust God's goodness because he knows who God is. Right? God has proved himself in Abraham's life, so he can trust that God is good. Let's read what happens to this story. When the water in the skin was gone, she put the boy under the bushes, and she went off and sat about a bow shot away, for she thought, I cannot watch the boy die. And she sat there, and she began to sob. God heard the boy crying, and the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven and said to her, what is the matter, Hagar? Do not be afraid. God has heard the boy crying as he lies there. Lift the boy up, take him by the hand, for I will make him into a great nation. Then God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. So she went and filled the skin with the water and gave it a good drink. God was with the boy as he grew up. He lived in the desert and became our Yahweh. Happy, right? But isn't that so much like God? right? What we think and can't see is unjust and unfair. God makes it right. And God always makes it right. This is an unconventional way for God to save this family, right? But God doesn't. God doesn't just let unfairness come from the negative, as a negative externality for the decision He wants to make. God put us on this earth. God's not just going to let you suffer and not make it good, right? God always rescues the people in the desert who are there because of His right. Be like Abraham. Experience God's love and know that whatever questions you might have, God's got it, okay? He's going to make it all right. And if you're not like Abraham, know that God is going to make it okay, right? God, the one that sits on the throne, says, I make all things new, right? Knowing God makes doubts less and it's easier for us to trust Him. So while this is a good question, it's valid but not sound, right? It's a good question to ponder, but in your pondering of this question, know that, here's my first response, that will make it okay. It won't be unfair by the end. And it's hard to trust that and know God, because the more you know God, the more it'll be easy to understand that right? That prophecy becomes easier to trust when you know God. Okay, I hope that was good. That's all I had. I'm sorry that it was long and dry. We're going to have some great music for 10 minutes to make up for it instead. Let's also have an offering and then we'll be dismissed. That's it. Thanks for being here again. Let's have a word.